watercolor friends, and welcome to my watercolor channel. I'm Laurel Hart, and this is a YouTube channel on painting loose watercolors. So I'm glad you've chosen to join me today. The subject that I want to focus on in this video is using photographs to paint from. Over the years in the art world, there's been sort of a stigma against using photos as reference material, a sort of look down upon technique that somehow lessens the talent of the artist. I'd like to share some opinions from a contemporary master painter, James Crandall, whose work I really love. And these are words that he wrote about this subject and put to rest the idea that painting from photos is a bad idea. Quoting from him, "As a young student training to be an illustrator, I was encouraged to draw from life. At the Art Center College of Design in the late 70s, early term pupils were advised to stay clear of the small room with the lucigraphs, tracing devices. The fear was that we would neglect our drawing classes and not acquire the skills necessary for our trade. Less than halfway through the program, we began to feel the pressure to produce more professional-looking work. Much of the time, this meant embracing the use of photographic reference. There were really few practical options if one were going to compete, either with one's peers at college or ultimately with experienced professionals in the industry. Of course, this shortcutting was nothing new. Artists through the centuries had used optical devices to achieve images with greater realism. Naturally, when this was done, it was treated as something of a trade secret because artists wanted to maintain the illusion of extraordinary skills. Who doesn't want that? For the sake of their professional status. How many employed these aids we will probably never know, simply because every measure was taken to obscure evidence of their use." In this article, James Crandall talks about Norman Rockwell using ways to trace his photos, as well as Anders Zorn working from photographic material. "There's resistance to this kind of revelation, as we're all sometimes pained to have our most treasured myths questioned," and I'm quoting again from James Crandall. "For representational painters, photography presents options, and not just for photorealism, but for a variety of styles. The artist can adopt any number of stylized graphic or impressionistic modes. Photos can be eyeballed, gridded, or traced. The end results can be monochromatic or fantastically saturated. Their proportions and shapes can be carefully replicated or intentionally distorted. Details can be included or largely ignored." So in other words, the photo doesn't have to dictate what the artist does. And then his final words are, "I think the time has come to put aside old stigmas. After nearly 200 years, photography should be seen as just another tool available to every artist." Well, I'm very much in agreement with what James Crandall has to say, and I feel like there's no shame in using photographic references to paint from. I know there's a great emphasis today put on plein air painting, almost to the point of elevating it a little too much over artists that paint from photographs, in my opinion. I feel that a good painting is a good painting regardless of the method used to create it. So I really don't worry about it. I feel that my photos are part of my artistic process as much as my drawing and painting is. I look for images that excite me visually, and it is in my photos where I first try to create good compositions. I don't have a really fancy camera anymore. I used to have a really nice Nikon with a big telephoto lens, but the quality of the cameras on iPhones now are just so good that I find I just normally use that to take my photos on. I love taking pictures at magic hour, either in the morning or in the evening when the sunlight is coming onto the subject at an angle. And this time of day creates beautiful, rich color, as well as elongated and interesting shadow patterns. Interior scenes are also carefully orchestrated to have the subject in dramatic lighting. I usually like to find subjects that have more shadow than light to them, so the light is emphasized against the dark and stands out more since there's more of the shade. Backlit subjects create very dramatic compositions, and I love using backlighting. Also, my photos don't have to be perfect because I can edit them on my phone or edit them in my drawing however I want to, especially by cropping the image to just select certain parts of the photo that I might want to zoom in on. Also, as I've shown before, there are some really interesting art editing apps that can let you experiment with value patterns of your photo, and I'm going to show this in a minute. I love playing with these ideas, and they're much like doing thumbnail value sketches of your subject. So I'd like to show you some examples of the kind of subjects that I look for in my photos. I have a little album that I'm going to show you. Okay, so this one, notice how I've got the light coming on an angle, and I've got this little highlighted part of sunlight on the house here, and that's what I would zero in on this photo. This one, again, that was taken as a live image, so it ends up highlighting this very bright part, and this is actually the subject that I'm going to be painting from today, and you can see that I have just cropped in on it, and I'm just going to paint this part that's got the really pretty light and shadow patterns there. This one, as I was saying, I don't need to have a perfect photo. This is a terrible photo, and my family makes fun of me for these kind of photos. I've taken it from the car. Here's all the rear view mirror and stuff in the way, but it's okay for my purposes because I'm just going to use a little part of that photo anyway, and I think that would be a really beautiful little scene right there. This one, again, terrible photo. I've got the mirror in the way, bad lighting here, but again, I can zoom in on this little porch and find myself a really nice subject out of that. So I'm not going after photos that I'm really going to want to frame or keep or print for the photograph's sake. This one, I love the shadows under the porch on this one, and definitely that's one that I would like to paint. This one again, notice the beautiful light patterns on that front porch. And again, this is probably early morning with the light coming in at an angle and creating these beautiful highlighted parts in the sunlight on the house. Another one with the sun coming at an angle. These are a few examples of figures. And as I mentioned, I really love backlight. The light is coming from behind the girls there, my granddaughters. And that makes for a very nice continuous pattern of paint when I paint that as a melted figure. And here's another one of my granddaughters. The three of them together, again, beautiful backlighting. You just get these really nice little pieces of light on the figure. Another one that I have painted. And here's one of just, I really like dappled light, where you're getting light that's diffused through other foliage or trees. Here's one with some figures that I took just as they were passing through that light source right there. I've also painted that one before. Here's another good example of backlighting where just that little edge of light is showing around the figures' heads, and then you get these beautiful, beautiful elongated shadows. Here's another one of the dappled lighting that I'm talking about on this house. I've also turned this one into a painting, but I would zoom in on that and just catch that really pretty light and shadow pattern there. Another one with, and here's another light source at the angle. Same here, very dramatic in that low lighting. And also I like diffusing. I like using the portrait mode on my camera so that you can have things in detail up front and softened out in the background. This is a good example of that one. And another with really strong backlighting. Interiors are fun too. I love having low light coming in from the window. I don't even know if you can see that one very well. And that one is the lighting in Europe. Narrow alleys are really fun to get some good light effects. Dappled light. This one is very monochromatic in the lighting, but I loved that it just had these touches of color with the umbrella and the figures there. Here's a really low light one of a scene in Europe. And then florals interiors, I like having the light again more behind the subject. Whoa, I've got paint all over me. So that you just get the light halo around the flowers. And I also will take photos of things that are on display in stores. That's not beneath me. That's it. But anyway, that's a good little idea that gives you of the kinds of photographs that I look for. And as I said, I try to set up my composition in my mind as I'm taking these photos. And with just a little bit of practice, you can get really very good at things jumping out at you that you just know need to be painted. I want to show you one other thing, and then I'll get started painting. This is one of the art editing apps that I talked about. This one is called No Tannizer, and it comes in a package with Grid Painter, or I think you can buy it alone also. But I've got this, no, it isn't this photograph. I've got a photograph of another scene in this No Tannizer, but what this can do, and I've demonstrated this before, it's really fun to play with, where you can dial down your darks almost all the way to very, very, very little light pattern, even go darker than that, or bring it up to where you have very little shadow and mostly light. And so this is a way for me to do thumbnail sketches. And then you can hit this and save it and use it as a black and white reference for your painting. It's very useful and very helpful. Okay, well, that is a little bit about using photographs from my perspective. I'm going to start painting now. And like I said, the scene that I've chosen is early morning light coming in on this house at an angle. And to start on this, I'm going to get a very nice first wash on here that is continuous all over the page except for where I've got these bright lights. Okay, I'm going to put in a little bit just for my reference as to where these light patterns are here. And this is my horizon line straight through here. So everything here is straight and everything below there is coming up. Everything above that is coming down. Sorry, I did that wrong. Everything above it is coming down. Everything below is coming up. Okay, so light pattern. Just want to remind myself there, here, and down here on this railing. Gonna leave some good lights there. A good little piece of light on that. So I'm just giving myself a little reminder where I don't want to I don't want to paint over those sunlit areas. This up in here too is all in light. And I'm going to have some really pretty reflected light right there. So I will start now with a big wash of a triad of manganese blue, alizarin crimson, and yellow this time, I believe. Yeah, I think I'll use my yellow ochre. That sunlight looks a little more ochreish to me than a bright, really bright yellow. So as I said, I'm going to get just a value on to my page covering everything that is not in direct sunlight. So I'm not particularly looking at these as color. I'm looking at them as value. That's an issue that a lot of you have a bit of a problem understanding, that I get questions that say, how do you know what color goes where? It doesn't go where. The colors right now are treated as they're not colors. They're just a mix of these three primary colors everywhere on the page. And I will adapt that when I get down into the greens probably, and here where I'm using more yellow. But for the most part, I'm just going to try to get a nice value covering my page that is within about a value 3, 4, and just not going deeper than a 5, okay? Let's just say that. So I'm trying to be careful to, okay, this is all in shadow here. Coming all the way down here, I don't have to be too careful because all of this is in shadow here. Vary it a little bit again with my yellow ochre. But do you see how that's just a mix of those three colors and not really, it's not really a color, is it? Okay, I've got to be careful because this is in light up here. I think I'm right about that. And the window, it has a little bit of light on it. I don't know. A little bit of light on the, whatever you call that thing. I don't know what it is. The deal right there. The deal. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of get in some of the shadow under these clapboards. Is that what that is, clapboard? I think. Okay. And I've got that sun here too. So if you didn't understand what I was talking about with the perspective before, these lines are coming down, these lines are going to be going up a little bit. And then I don't really want this here. Okay, and down here is in shadow. So coming down here, all the way down on that. And here's where I am going to punch in a little bit of bright color, because I've got that really pretty, oh, this was supposed to be white here too. That's in sunlight there. Right here, that nice reflected color. Oh, and I just put that in the wrong spot. That is under here. I'm going to over-exaggerate that. It won't need to be that dark in the end, but okay, that part is in shadow right there. Okay. Okay, then still working along here. That's going to be okay, then down to here. I need to be careful. And this even looks to me a little more rosy colored there. And maybe that gonna leave a little bit of a highlight on the post right in here, okay? And down here, this is not really in sun, but it's got I'm going to keep working this bead down here. Leaving that little sunlight right down in there. And then I am kind of looking at the color of the brick down in here. I am going to leave that kind of a orangey red. And letting that green kind of fade down in there anyway. That looks like that should be in light right there. And I'm jumping over, I'm going to put some flowers down in here because I can see in wow, I like that little light right there, but I don't think that's real because the sun's coming this way. We'll leave that white back there in case the sun's hitting something back there. How about that? Okay, and then this again, whoa, that's dark. But this is very dark back in here, so that's probably okay. Now, I am going to come in with some real green now. First, though, let's do some, let's say that there are some red flowers over in here. And there really are some white ones. I'm going to put in some yellow. Let it bleed up into the paint up above it. And then come in with the green underneath that. And maybe a really bright green. That was sap green with cadmium red in it. And I'll leave some of that as white flowers too. I won't cover that all. We'll give ourselves a little bit lead into the painting here, but I kind of like having this bottom edge a bit of a vignetted thing because that just gives a more interesting edge, I guess, is what it does. Okay, and then I was going to put kind of some pretend, well, made up flowers up in here. I'm going to just say that there's some hanging baskets back in here. So as you can see, you don't have to be tied to your photo. You can work in what you want and leave out what you want. And these are probably in shadow over here. So they're not going to be really bright color. And do I want one more or just that one? Let's just go with that one. I drew another one in there, but I think I'm going to leave that out. All right, so that is my first wash, and sometimes I just really wish I could leave the whole painting like that, because it's got so much excitement to it to me, and it almost reads well enough that you could just let it go there, but I never have the guts to. So at this point, I am going to get my blow dryer and dry this first little part. Let's take a little bit of that color out. Okay, that's pretty dry to the touch now, so that's the first wash finished up, and now I can go in with some stronger values, and those will start setting things forward. So I think I'm going to clear my palette here for a minute. And I will still use some of the same initial colors from the first wash. I'll probably still keep my manganese blue, for sure, my alizarin crimson, but I will be adding probably also ultramarine blue, and I'll add in now some burnt sienna or transparent oxide red to use as a yellow in the triad. Okay, so getting started again on these darker colors, I'm going to bring in a deeper blue with my ultramarine blue now. And I think also I'm going to skip down to a smaller brush. This was a number 10 rosemary. Sorry about my painted hands. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, this is a rosemary sable. And I'm going to go down now to a number 10 of the King Art brushes that are now, I'm using now to replace my old low Cornell brushes. It's a very nice brush. And this one is the Max Round, which means it's got a bit of a longer tip, and I think a little more thickness in the brush bristles. So now, okay, as I start with this gets really fun because you can start defining things. Okay, and so here's my traditional really dark triad. Ultramarine blue, permanent alizarin crimson, and then this is, I think this one is transparent oxide red, but if you don't have that, you can use burnt sienna. But that is my lower triad to get things to a deep value. And this is where I will start this up here under whoops, that's kind of okay. And same thing over here. And I'll let a little bit of the burnt sienna have a turn. And that doesn't have to be perfect, but it's just showing us now that there's this dark shadow that's peeking through those little spindles. And I don't know why this is kind of a pink. Well, I don't know why, but I'm going to leave it maybe as if it's the same white color as these front porch posts. But so I've got a dark value back in here that is going to maybe just kind of explain okay. And it's also, oh no, not that. Whoops, whoops, whoops. That's the little deal here, the little decorative thing. So it's going to be back here, back of the plant, okay? So and sometimes I'll throw in a little bit of, I think this is raw umber or burned umber too. And back here actually is a window that is, it's got some pretty reflection on it. So that's coming down here. And now you can see what was white didn't look white when I went over it with this first wash, but now as I put these darks in, you can see now that that is, that these posts and these little decorative things of the Victorian molding, probably somebody knows all these technical names for it, are coming forward now. And I'm going to put a little bit of the detail on these. It's going to have a little bit of a shadow coming down over here because this is not totally flat. This is going to have a bit of a shadow here. And probably there's something right through here too. Then I'm going to go back and punch in more color in my plant here, so that that's coming forward a little bit more. And it's going to have some more green in there too. And I'll come back in on this a little bit later too. And put some darker darks in here, but for right now, this is good. And you know, I kind of missed, there's a second one of these here. Gonna be just a little bit of a painted thing in between there. So those are divided off, and then I've got the dark and since these little spindles are much closer to each other because we've turned the corner, they're going to be more like that. Okay. And this now coming under there, under here. It's darker all the way down to there. I missed the edge of this that was supposed to have the light on it, because I had it placed wrong. And sometimes stuff doesn't have to be totally logically making sense to still read right. Okay. Okay, then up here, there's this little part of the roof that coming up there, and then that's dark above it. Then down here we have some explaining to do. So underneath these porch railings, we've got some darks, and then I'm not going to paint those as if they're all curvy like they are, because that looks hard. But so that finishes off this little part of the porch. Probably a little darker under there because And like I said, we don't know what's making those little light patterns back there, but something on the porch is in sun. That's all we need to show. Okay, and I don't know if I want to show that there's a window up here. Probably not really necessary. And I've got, actually under here is pretty dark. And we want it to be, so it's going to show off that really beautiful little highlight of sunlight right there. The shadow here is pretty light. Working back up in here, this is a little darker than I've got it. All I'm doing really is just continuing to paint these shadow and light patterns now. Ow. Then back over in here, I almost kind of want to wet this edge. So what I've got to do now is bring a darker value in over here where this part of the house is back in shade. I want it a little more colorful than that. And I want that just a little bit warmer in there. When you paint these abstract patterns, though, you actually end up, I think, with a more realistic subject. It's the weirdest thing. But when you stand back from a little distance from this picture, it reads very believably. Okay. So here's my kind of fun light patterns through here. Light and shade patterns, and that's really kind of my favorite part. And I guess up in here, we would still be seeing these. Okay, my window here, um, I'm just tucking in a few darks now to this little edge of a roof here would probably have a dark edge. And there's that warm glow of the flowers and things that are reflecting up onto the house. And it's interesting how orange the light looks right through here. So I'm gonna kind of stick with that. And right over here too. I didn't know that was still that wet there. Gotta wait a little bit on that. We can be putting in a few of these little darks now under here that show that these leaves are crossing over each other. be careful that I don't do too much of this, but it okay, then some of this I'm going to smooth out a little bit because I may have a few too many hard edges in there, so I'll just come in with some of this cadmium yellow and blur some of that out. Kind of using a brush to bring that down over it. But I want to leave some of that lighter foliage showing underneath. Now it should work a little better to put the put in a little bit of the darks and let them bleed under here a little bit more. My palette's kind of getting to be a mess, but I'm nearing the end, so sometimes it's fun to put kind of a surprise shadow in a color in a shadow. Just going to pull out a little bit of the flower color to give that hanging basket a little bit of dimension. Okay, and then this over here, I think I am going to let it look like there is a window back here. Maybe we'll even give it a little thing like it's got a divider. So these over here, just kind of sharpening some stuff up here now. I decided that needed to look more like a window. Okay, and this over here is probably dry enough for me to go back in now. And I just want to, there's a little dark between these two pillars. And it's coming all the way down here. If you miss some of your lights, you can just pull them out on this if you're using a good forgiving paper like this one is. And why I put that green in there, heaven only knows, but it's pretty. Final darks. Don't want too many of them. All right, so I'm just about near the end here. Just making value corrections at the end. That little area there is darker, as well as here where that's turning away. Okay, I was going to go back into that window because this is actually darker there. So now you get a little bit of a feeling of that window having sunlight on it too. Got just a little bit of gotta show just a little bit of the value. And I need a little bit of dark values down through here too. So your stuff doesn't have to be perfect to be believable to the eye. Just kind of has to be approximate. That's my theory. And I don't want that to call too much attention to itself up there. That's a minor part of the painting. That little flower basket seemed like it needed some yellow. And I'm still, still wondering if I want to go over this with a manganese wash, and I think I do. Do I? Take that value down somewhat. Yeah, it did need that. And that can come down in value. As well as this other brick stuff. It's a little bit darker too. And it can help me show off these flowers a little better. Just smoothing down here a little bit. Adding a little bit more yellow flowers too. So that's my demonstration on working from photographs. You can make your photographs your own. Just use your own interpretation, take out what you don't want and put in what you do want. And I think it's a great tool for creating good art. So thanks for joining me with this video today, and I will see you next time. Bye.